think about a financial collapse coming or like a recession coming?
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another great episode of the DCL podcast. Today I have Philip and Colton on my side. I'll allow them to introduce themselves.
Sure, my name is Philip Maldonado. I am a cybersecurity major, and I'm actually graduating tomorrow. So
Congrats, man.
Thank you, guys.
My name is Colton Wolf. I'm a business management major.
And I'm a criminal justice major at ISU. Me and Colton are both juniors, so we got another year left in here. But we're just going to dive into college, the things that we faced in college, and we'll go on from there. So I wanted to start off, what is the most important aspect of your college experience?
For me, it was definitely the friendships and relationships I made with everyone else. I met so many new people and so many different ethnicities and so many different backgrounds. And yeah, a lot of people say that, ISU is just only just like a lot of people are just white here. But it's not true. Like, there's a lot of different backgrounds. And honestly, you just got to talk to people because so many different people have different stories.
Yeah, I can kind of like piggyback off the racial makeup here. As one of the only people in my apartment, I'm like the only white guy. So it's like I don't really see that too much. Race being an issue here.
Yeah, no, I mean, of course, it's primarily white if you look at the percentage, but you also got to understand there's 24,000 people here, and there's so many people from different backgrounds, ethnicities. We have foreign exchange students. Like, there's so many different types of people, so you definitely get that full all-around experience here at ISU. The relationships that I gain here is honestly the most important thing. Other than the classroom, yeah, what you learn in the classroom is important, but the people you meet and the experiences you have outweigh, your actual education, potential benefit-wise.
Yeah, like networking is like the biggest thing for college. It's like the degree I feel like going to ISU is valuable, but the connections you make with people is like so much stronger. Mm-hmm. And meeting people, networking, it's like you got to get to know people in order to really make it in life. If you don't really talk and kind of stay shelled, it's going to be a lot harder, I feel like.
I feel like through college, this is the most that people have really like developed themselves as a person. I mean, they've been able to find themselves and find out who they truly are. Because think about it, right? Your whole life, you're living with either your parents or, whoever takes care of you. And you're really not so sheltered, but, you have certain rule sets. Once you get to college, it's a free-for-all. You can do whatever you want. So, for a lot of people, they actually find themselves and find out what kind of person they actually are.
Especially when you go to college, you're breaking away from, your family. So you're starting to develop your own beliefs. You're starting to develop your own habits.
It's a sink or swim, I feel like, here. I'm not going to lie, the first year of me being here was a little rough because I couldn't find that median. Mm-hmm. So my, grades were tough, but it's like you kind of go through that period to finding yourself. And it's like, all right, maybe I should start hitting the gym, not drink so much, and kind of focus on my grades. And then I feel like it starts to really get rolling, then you can manage it.
You gotta start thinking about how you're gonna feed yourself every day. You gotta start thinking about like, shit, I can stay up all night, but probably not the best idea since I have a class at like 9 a.m.
Yeah.
And those are the times that you have to become an adult and make the right choices and make the right decisions.
Yeah, you gotta be accountable. You gotta get the stuff done that you gotta get done, get your priorities done. Something I want to talk about is we all experienced COVID-19 coming into college. It was during your second year, right?
Yeah. When it really started was like spring. It was like spring break of my freshman year. Yeah. Is when we got sent back home. Mm-hmm. I used to live at Wadi, and they literally sent us all home, and they were saying, 2 weeks maximum. We get like an extra week of vacation. We're like, oh, cool. Next thing you know, what is it, like 6 months lockdown?
Yeah. Yeah, even us going into college, we came in during that COVID-19 era. So, we had to shift to online learning. We were isolated from other people. How did you handle the challenges posed by the pandemic?
I would say right out of high school, I went into the Army. And that was the peak of COVID, 2020 or whatever that was, over the summer. That was like kind of a challenge for me. It was a very different feel of like going through basic training and stuff. And then when I got out of that, it was like everything was at a pause. And I was like, whoa, do I start college? What do I do next? Like, no one's really hiring. Everyone's at home. And so I'd kind of figure out going to college during COVID and out of that basic training stuff, I had to figure it out. Like really had to figure it out.
For me, to be honest, I feel bad for a lot of people because I feel like I didn't really have too many problems during COVID. It was really easy for me. It was like I just had to stay home. All I had to do was do online classes, which I mean, it was Zoom classes. So like half the time you really weren't paying attention. Other than that, like just staying home, you know, you could still hit the gym because those were like necessity places that needed to be open. Mm-hmm. And then other than that, it's food. So a lot of gaming was done, a lot of schoolwork was done, mm-hmm. but it definitely had a lot of different impacts for a lot of other people.
Yeah. The main thing for me was not being able to actually communicate with people. Like you couldn't. Everyone was wearing face masks. Classes were not in session. Freshman year, the school did open up, but it was all online classes. Like the dorms were open, but still like everyone had face masks on. Like the face mask provided like a barrier. Like it just made it so hard to go and meet new people and communicate to new people because people were constantly scared of, you know what I mean, catching COVID and then when you have a face mask on, I feel like that just like blocks, like it's like a social block. Like it's hard for me to communicate with people with that mask on.
You can't really see emotion in it. Mm-mm. It's like someone can chirp. So I feel like everyone was so aggravated, and it was like you had this mask on, like you can give people dirty looks. I remember I'd always be mean mugging people with my mask on. I'd be like, man, this guy coughing all over the place, not wiping up his stuff.
Mask definitely made it harder for people to like actually talk. Mm-hmm. A lot of people were like muffled voices, yeah. But at the same time, yeah, I definitely have to agree with the emotions and stuff that you can't really tell when people's like talking without, you know, covering up their face.
The pandemic, it lasted a long time. What, like 2 years? Is it still kind of going where people are still catching COVID now? I feel like now it's just not as big of an effect. Like you barely hear about it. We don't have to wear face masks. We can go to class in person. I think definitely we found our way back to normal.
I would say it was kind of like a phase. Mm-hmm. Like it was just like, it was hot really quick, and then all of a sudden it's like, no, I don't think about COVID at all when I wake up.
Mm-hmm. I mean, a lot of it has to do with just like what they put in the media. Like they're not talking about COVID anymore, so no one's actually talking about it anymore.
Yeah.
It's really what we see every day is what we talk about.
COVID-19, every single news channel, every single social media, you would see the pandemic, COVID, what it's doing. And at some point, actually, the pandemic made me quit watching the news. I had to stop just because I couldn't be in constant stress and anxiety over this pandemic. I had to, live life and be in my own zone. I started turning off social media. I started turning off the news. Like I couldn't take any more of that. It was just too overwhelming, too much. And I feel like a lot of it was just here to just stress us out. COVID definitely had a detrimental impact to a lot of people, especially elder people and people with, existing health issues, but still I feel like it just stressed out the population as a whole.
The problem with the news is they have to sell something, right? Mm-hmm. They have to sell something so that people will watch it, right? Because if they're not interesting or if they're not spreading some type of fear to people aren't just going to watch. It's not going to be interesting enough, mm-hmm. right? So they have to do what they have to do.
Either you're getting the vaccine and like you're on team people, or it's like you don't get the vaccine and it's like, oh my gosh, you're like the enemy. I feel like there was a huge outcast during that whole time.
Yeah,
and it was a major part of COVID.
Yeah, and that divided our country between people who got a vaccine and people who didn't get a vaccine, and it really polarized us. Like we couldn't see eye to eye. We weren't on the same page with things, and it just divided us as a country because we had people arguing over little things like masks, over you're wearing a mask, you're not, and that created such big problems for people, and it ruined the dynamic that we had within our country. We're very separated, we're very isolated, and I feel like that also emphasized the political division that we have here.
Huge political division right there. Mm-hmm. It's like if you didn't get the vaccine, it's like, oh, you must be like a Republican, and it's like you're not concerned about my family's safety. And it was like, bro, chill out. It's like, I didn't get the vaccine because various reasons of it not being studied. Like, mm-hmm. It came out so quick, and people were so quick to get stabbed. And I'm like, I wanted to chill and, like, kind of, like, see it through, almost.
People put so much faith into the pharmaceutical companies. It's just crazy to me because they've had a history of doing the wrong thing. of lying and telling the media and telling people not the truth. For example, there was a company called they made a drug called Vioxx that killed over 50,000 Americans. That was more than some wars that the U.S. has been in recently. And they made over, I think it was, I could be wrong, but it was like $18 billion. But all they had to pay was like $5 billion worth in fines. So they pretty much profited off 50,000 people dying.
Yeah, a lot of those deaths, a lot of COVID deaths, made a lot of money. Like a lot of hospitals made a lot of money just by saying like, oh, this guy died of COVID, but in reality he died in a car accident. But it's like they're so quick to COVID death, and you can see from like 2020, like the people that died from the flu, and then people died from COVID. It was like a completely different margin from the 2 years before and the year before.
Yeah, because what they did with that is if you passed away in the hospital, if you passed away and you had COVID, they automatically ruled your death as because of COVID. You know what I mean? It wasn't like, like if you had if you had pre-existing health conditions and then you had COVID, you passed away because of COVID. That was marked exclusively because of COVID. They didn't investigate any
if
further.
You were like diabetic, if you were just out of shape. At the same time, a lot of it was because they were getting paid.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're gonna give an incentive to give out more money to hospitals that claim more COVID deaths, then why wouldn't you?
One thing I wanted to hop on today is, what is the government's role in society? What are they here for? What are they supposed to do?
What I expect from the government is get the bare minimum things done, right? You need, schools. You need places that people could live. You need people, resources for people. You need firefighters. You need hospitals. You need police. That's it. Everything else is just fluff. And I could agree and disagree on certain things. But I feel like we throw so much money at government and taking out so much in taxes. The amount of tax that we have to pay, especially small businesses that have to pay, is just insane. It's just like they don't want people who are middle class to actually like succeed. They just want us to stay there and keep paying our taxes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's kind of the middle class is kind of like fading out, and it's either like you either want to be a billionaire or it's either you're gonna just make ends meet.
Yeah.
The middle class is being attacked. The middle class is being attacked by the poor. They're not extracting resources from the business owners. They're extracting resources from the middle class. The top earners, they're not extracting from the poor. They're extracting from the middle class. So everyone's feeding off the middle class. The taxes they get are insane. The middle class gets taxed more than the top earner.
There's incentives, I feel like, to having a credit card, and I heard that you have to fact check it, but I'm pretty sure that there was like a bill passed where if you have a lower credit score, you get more relief than if you have a higher credit score.
I think they want to put that past that bill through. I don't think
Yeah,
a lot of people are just living check to check, and that's the saddest part about it. Is that not enough people have. If something happens to them, they don't have enough money to actually get them out of it. If somebody like gets like a broken leg or something and they can't work, they're fucked. Yeah, the government might help them out for a little bit, but
but
then
it's time. Yeah. It's the time. Like time is money.
Yeah, and they don't have that insurance. People don't have the next 6 months saved up in their bank account. They're literally living check to check. Oh, I got this check. I can finally pay these bills. You know what I mean? People aren't setting themselves up, and that's our fault for the way we're managing money, and also taxes are pretty outrageous as well.
Like, just think about all the money that, like, if you just cut taxes in half, right, of what people have to pay, just think about all the extra cash that people would be able to save up or, spend. Spending isn't always a bad thing because, you need to spend money so that businesses could flourish and survive. You need money and you need to spend money so that, different opportunities could happen. If you keep trying to cut services down, right, then all you're going to have is you're getting the same big companies getting everyone's money. And then no one can actually get out of the middle class, because how do you get out of middle class? It's either you work really hard and get an amazing job one day that pays you a great salary, or you create your own business. What other ways are there to make yourself a millionaire?
It's really just business, because the tax benefits for owning a business are insane. And it's like that because if you have a guy that goes out and can create jobs and can boost the economy, why not give him a tax benefit? Because if you don't, he's going to go overseas and get labor for $2 an hour. You know what I mean? Like he's gonna go overseas and exploit some other people. Like, you know what I mean? Like Nike with their sweatshops. You know what I mean? Our companies are just going to go overseas if we don't give them that tax break. I believe that the government and society needs to take care of the least fortunate. So how are we going to find a balance between cutting taxes and still being able to take care of our elderly or those in need?
Yeah, I mean, Social Security is a great thing. I would say that for certain people that need it, it's very good, but I feel like it can be abused by a lot of like people that are poor and stuff, because it's not incentive for them to work. Like my grandparents on my mom's side, they lived Social Security for like the last 20 years that they couldn't work. So when they turned 60, they had their retirement, but they also needed Social Security. And I feel like people like them that are old and that can't work, it's like I can see it being helpful for them. But if it's like you're young, you're like 25, and you just sit on the street, and it's like you just want to sit there and collect your check. It's like, man, you're not contributing to society. Like being on the street, you should be like, wow, like I want to get up. I want to get up and take action. Because if you just are constantly be given something and it's like, oh, well, I can just get this given to me, you're not going to be really incentive to work. And me as a 21 years old, I'm starting to realize how broke I actually am, and like how broke we all are, and how broke like everyone around me is. And it's like I need to get away from, like, once I graduate, I want to move like outside of the US. I want to move to places where there's more money, so I can necessarily make better friends with more money and help them use me to make more money for them, and then in return I make more money too. So like you got to get away from the poverty.
There's a lot of poverty here, and I think that comes a lot from the culture, how we handle things. What about the education? What about actually putting these people in position to get jobs? Giving someone $1,200 a month does not solve anything.
Throwing money at problems never solves anything.
No, we need to solve the root of the problem. Why do you not have a job? Okay, you don't have an education. Okay, now let's do this. Let's find jobs that you don't need an education for. Let's help you attain that education. Don't just throw money, throw resources, and that's what we need. It's just a lack of resources. I feel like a big problem in the United States today is that we are so divided. It's little issues like the face mask thing that creates such hostile environments and such. Like, people get really hostile when you get to talk about these things.
People just get too caught up in, just random bull. A lot of people don't have the same life as us. Like, outside of the U.S., it's pretty bad out there. We're so fortunate to have everything that we have and live the lives that we live because we live in a country like the U.S. God forbid you live in Russia or Ukraine right now, where you literally have to fight a war for some bullshit reason.
I kind of gotta add something to that. I feel like our society, as like being in the West, it's so doomed because it's like there's so much pornography out there. There's all these distractions, and it's like, you made the comment about Ukraine and Russia like having to fight and stuff. I think that's they're killing each other. It's terrible. So many war crimes being committed, but the men that are kind of being brought through, it's like, I feel like that's so much more powerful for the next generations to come to raise, because it's like now you have people here that are been vaping since they were 15, and then now they're going to become adults one day and have health problems.
You have girls who have to buy Starbucks every day because, God forbid, they don't get their $5 drink.
Yeah, and it's like people are having image issues here, and it's like all this LGBTQ stuff. Like I have friends that are gay. I respect them, and it's like they're made in the image of God, and it's like I have my own problems with sin. They have their own problem. I'm not one to judge. I'm not going to throw the first stone, but it's like as a collective, I feel like it is so easy to cast stones in our society, and it's like, oh, cancel culture is huge. These are all problems that aren't even necessary. Cancel culture in Ukraine? You think they think about that?
They're worried about not dying.
Yeah, and that's just all because we live in such a privileged society, and the average person really doesn't have the problems that other people have. Even the poor people in our society live such a privileged life compared to 300-400 years ago, because of all the resources we have and just how this world is. Like, and we got people driving cars at 16, you know what I mean? But back 100 years ago, for you to have a car, you had to be You to be big dog.
Yeah, you gotta have a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's flying on planes now. Everything is just so much more accessible to the average citizen, and we take advantage of it. Like, even fruit. Fruit used to be something only kings and, you know what I mean, kings would eat fruit. But now it's accessible for everyone. It's accessible for even the homeless people in our society. So we live in such a privileged society, and I think that since we don't have any real problems, we start to just pick apart petty issues.
Yeah.
People just don't realize how fortunate they are at the end of the day.
Yeah. I'm not saying that, people in America don't have problems. I feel like there's, I feel like there's a lot of people out there that are suffering from, maybe not so much now, but I wouldn't know too much. But it's like race discrimination. If I was, maybe, facing that every day, like that'd be an issue with me, like trying to progress. And like I could see how that could be fixed, or like having to need to be fixed. And so, I feel like people in America definitely have problems, but it's not to the extent of like what it could be. It could be a lot worse.
And at the end of the day,
Maybe a
that's
lot
what
worse.
you just have to be thankful for what you really have. And, even if you might not have much, maybe you're in a terrible situation, just be thankful for your health, maybe.
Yeah, you could have no legs.
Yeah.
That would.
Yeah.
I like my legs, man, or have some sort of issue.
All right, so what is the most significant changes you would like to see in the political landscape today?
There kind of needs to be a step back in the sense of, I feel like we need to insure our currency. Like I really wish our money was worth more.
It actually being backed by gold, because it's not backed by gold anymore.
It's not backed by anything.
I don't
It's
know.
backed by itself.
I forget what president did that back in the day. Lyndon Johnson, I think, or something. I don't know exactly, but back when the currency was actually a lot of money, and it was like $10 was like $50 today. Like that's where I miss, where our money was like actually worth something, because now it's like I go out and I'm like, oh bro, I got $20. I'll throw it. What if one day it's gonna be, oh, I got $50. I'll just toss it. It's just $50.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it's like, oh, gas is $7, and you're like, man, well, it could have been $8. At least it's not $8. And you're gonna be thinking back in the day, like, wow, remember when gas was $3? Like those were the good days. And
Our government's
$4?
trying to move slowly to like digital currency and trying to track all the shit that we actually purchase and shit. Like then they're gonna be able to tax you even more about just like about how you are as a person. Like let's say you're not greenhouse efficient, right? Or you're not recycling, right? They're gonna tax you even more, which great, it might help society a little bit. But at the end of the day, so many people are gonna lose money, and then they could put an expiration date on your money.
Yeah,
they get to see everything that you transaction with. Because if we go away from the standard dollar, right? If we go away from that and we go straight into just digital currency, it is gonna be so easy for them to track every single thing you do.
Yeah,
and everything you simply buy.
You should look up the executive order actually that was passed back in last March. It's going into effect soon, but it's executive order like 14406 or something. You should look into that. It's the executive order that Biden signed, and it gives you list by list of digital currency. They're gonna try to be able to track like all your payments, and it's like, oh, you bought too much gas today. They could shut off like how much money you spent. And
recently they've been trying to pass a bill that if you make over $600 on Cash App, Venmo, Zelle, anything like that, you got to report taxes on it. And before it was like you had to make like 200K or 200 transactions. It was something like that. But now they're starting to crack down on even small businesses who make over $600 a year, and that's pretty insane. Because like why are we investing resources to track people who are making $600 like that? It's just so petty. And
again, that's just another way that the government is trying to go after the middle class. They don't care about us. They want us to work more so that the people at the top can benefit from it. And people need to realize that it's either we change the way our government runs, right, or you have to face with the facts, and it's either you're gonna have to work your whole life, or you have to become something and own something.
I got kind of a question for y'all. Like,
What's up?
what do you guys think about a financial collapse coming, or like a recession coming soon?
I believe it can happen soon, just because the U.S. dollar is getting more unstable day by day. I forgot which countries partnered, but like
I
everything
think
is
it's called BRICS, with Brazil,
Yeah.
Russia, India,
and the
China.
and it's BRICS versus NATO, and NATO is just collapsing right now because I mean BRICS, the representation is just so strong, and
I mean, they haven't created a currency yet, but they're trying to, and they've also partnered up with some of the richest countries like Saudi Arabia, like like countries. I mean, like cities like Dubai and stuff like that. They're just trying to get as much wealth and as much power together as they can, and a lot of it is because of how much they hate just what the U.S. stands for right now.
I don't like the way that the whole Western culture is going. I'm not gonna lie. I would think I would rather go to somewhere in Europe or to get away from kind of, not like un-American, but I would always have my roots here. But it's like I can't stand some of the people here. It's like there's not a whole lot of values, and I feel like the beliefs are a lot different in other areas. And it's like the family unit here is kind of trash.
To be honest, I feel like for me, I want people to live however the way they want, as long as it means that you're happy. If you don't want to have a family, that's fine. Don't have a family.
Yeah.
But people shouldn't force their own opinions, and people also shouldn't get so defensive or think so negatively about how someone else lives.
Yeah.
If someone has a certain way of beliefs, like someone's super religious, right? They're anti, whatever you're against, right? That doesn't mean that you need to hate that person. It doesn't mean that you need to be against them. They're just people who have different opinions than you. And to be honest, they probably agree with a lot of things that you agree with. But on certain things, you guys disagree. And because of that, you can't just, shut them out.
Yeah, and when you're talking to people, especially if you put two people, like a lot of times, like if you take two people from two different political parties and you put them together, they're not gonna talk about their common interests. They're gonna talk about the 10% of things that they disagree about. And when we communicate, we need to show respect. We need to actively listen to the other person and what they're talking about, and show respect for their views. And if we do that, then it's just a respectful conversation. We can get somewhere. We can find common ground, and we can move on. But you can't really have a talk with someone if they're getting offended or if they're attacking you as a person for what you're saying.
A lot of it too is just that people don't want to listen. People are so against a different side than their own, and people really have to change that about themselves. It's like there's no way you could grow as a person and actually learn things and experience different things if you aren't listening to the people who are talking to you. Now, just because they might not agree with what you're saying or agree with the message that you have, that doesn't mean that, you should shut them out.
Just keep an open mind to learning new things and actually understanding, okay, why do you believe this? I believe this because of this, because of that, because of this. Why do you believe this? And listen to them. And don't listen to argue, listen to learn.
A lot of the reason people have different, opinions because of how they lived and how they grew up, right? If you have somebody who is, more liberal, they most likely grew up in a city, right? With a lot of other, people of their own ethnicity, right? If you're usually a Republican, you have other Republican friends, and you usually live in a more rural area. Now, just because of that doesn't mean that we can't be people and we can't have civil conversations, and we can't come into common ground.
Yeah, the whole political party thing, I would say I'm definitely more Republican, but I care not to care. It's like I would rather have the greater good, but I'm not gonna be idle to the problems around me. And it's like I'm pretty good at just keep my mouth shut and let society just go on, because I might just be one voice, but right now it's like I can't worry about that right now. I'm just worrying about, in a selfish way, I'm just trying to make it for myself, and not really for...
So many men our age are so lost. To be honest, the biggest problem I have for me graduating right now is, what am I going to do after? How am I going to make it? How am I going to be able to afford a household? How am I going to be able to get married one day and have kids and start a family and buy the nice things that I want?
Yeah,
how am I going to do that?
Goes back to networking. it's like you gotta make friends, and it's like you gotta, like, going back to being selfish, it's like you gotta be selfish with your friends. Like if you're friends with people that are bringing you down, it's like maybe it's time to distance yourself and try to get better friends. And same with the women. It's like if a woman's only offering me, like, it's like that's all she's good for me for. And it's like if I want a partner one day, it's like I want a good, reliable girl to be a partner with. And it's like
Completely agree.
I'm broke. I don't have much to offer. And it's like if you're gonna be in love with me, like the love is for the bond between us to prosper, and then one day to raise children and have a house together. But right now, I'm not worried about that right now.
Not a lot of people want that right now too. A lot of people like have divorces at skyrocket high. Nobody wants to get married. It's sad because eventually we're going to have problems with population. And think about it. If you're not having, people who are well off having children, right? If you don't have people who actually you could afford it, not have children, then you're really just making it worse for kids growing up. You're having kids, live in rougher backgrounds and stuff like that. So you have to find someone that you love, and like you have to try to find a family.
Yeah, the American family is very unstable. I think the divorce rate's at somewhat like 50%.
It's got to be higher.
Yeah, you have men in our society who don't want to get married just because
I don't think it's worth it.
There's no. I'm gonna be real. There's no benefit other than the merit, like other than the feeling that you have being married. Otherwise, there's no benefit.
It's a sad truth. Yeah, for our government and the way that our laws are written is so that women do have more of a reason to get married, which is good. You know what I mean? If that means that my wife one day is gonna marry me more, but like a lot of guys don't want to marry.
Yeah.
And if you have guys who don't want to marry, then it's like you probably have more fatherless kids.
Yeah, that's the sad reality of it. Yeah. Marriage is like one thing, but I feel like the biggest thing that us as males struggle with the most is commitment. It's that uncertainty, and it's like sometimes you just gotta like really like go for it and commit. Like I would say us as like young males, it's like we're always uncertain because we see so much going on, and it's like my brother got cheated on, my friend got cheated on, and it's like, whoa, like that's kind of scary.
Social media also definitely drives that narrative that people are just like cheating on each other all the time. They're always talking to other people, like, you can't trust them, and that just creates a bigger uncertainty. Before phones and shit were created, and before social media was a thing, people were for example, right? You meet a pretty girl at your school, right? You wouldn't compare her to, say, Kim Kardashian. You would never do that. You'd never compare her to some OnlyFans model or some porn star, because you didn't have it back then. Back then, if you saw a pretty girl, that was the prettiest girl that you've ever seen before.
I think it goes both ways too for girls, because it's like their image is out there, and if you have a bad girl that she's really attractive here, her ego is going to be so much higher, because it's like, oh, she gets the most amount of likes, she has this amount of followers, and it's like her ego is just imploded, and it's like sometimes you just got to be like, yo, chill.
It's the same thing for guys, though. You got to admit that, like,
definitely.
The image that men have to be at now, it's like you have to be over 6 feet tall, have to be making over $100,000, which is pretty high for most men, especially for young guys, right? Like, we're just getting out of college. I'm looking at jobs, they're offering me like $40,000, $50,000 at most. Like,
and that's good.
And that's good. That's good for our age.
To get a job, you get a consistent paycheck every day.
Yep.
It's like that's the start of it, and it's like we're so young. I sometimes I feel like, oh man, I'm so old. I feel so old. It's like some people are coming into college and like 18, 19, and I'm like, dang, like a couple years ago, if I knew what I knew now, it's like I feel like I'd be more progressed, but I feel like I'm not doing as much. But in reality, it's like I'm always busy. There's always a move. It's like me and Jamin are always working and having jobs, and I'll see him out, and I'll be like, oh yeah, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm working here or I'm working there, and it's like the hustle never stops. But it's like me not feeling like I'm not doing enough, and it's like
But that's what social media does for us. We're comparing ourselves to other people. We're comparing ourselves to celebrities. You're not that person. You know what I mean? You're not gonna be the most attractive person. You're not gonna make the most money like off the bat. Like we can't compare ourselves to social media, and we can't let social media get into our relationships. Because what works for other people might not work for us, and what works for us might not work for other people.
You see all these people out there with yachts and supermodel girlfriends, and it's like, whoa, it's like why can't I get there? But what it doesn't show is all the failure and how broke they must have been.
At one point.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely. We don't see the progress. We're only seeing the end results, and everyone is obsessed about the end results. But what about the process? What about getting there? That's really the most important thing.
Yeah. You guys know what the game Rust is?
No.
It's like you spawn in, you got a rock, and it's like you got to go throughout survival. It's like you got to go up, and once you're at the top, you like have a base, and like you got all this shit around you. But when I had this like kind of connection one day where I was playing this game, and I'm like, man, this game kind of sucks. You know, you get in, you get a rock, you make some tools, then you die, and then all of a sudden you get a house, and then you die. And then it's like harder and harder and harder. But once you get to the top of the game, it's like, man, I got everything. Like, I don't want to play anymore.
Yeah.
And then you go back. And it's like, right now, I'm just trying to enjoy the suck. Like, the suffering that we're going through. Living paycheck to paycheck. Learning, you know, having relationships fail on me. Like, I'm just trying to enjoy it. It's like, I got great health right now. I got good friends around me. And it's like, that's all I got to be thankful for. Because maybe one day when, you know, we make it, it's like, dang, those were the good days when we were broke. Yeah. So enjoy what we got, man.
And Colton, you promised to get into it. So, you know, what's going on with the military thing?
I mentioned a little bit before, I'm in the military, and last summer I went to my drill, and they're like, hey, the vaccine is still mandated. I submitted a religious request, but they lost it. I don't know how they just lose my request, but they lost it, and they really started like threatening me with legal battles. And they said like, oh, good luck getting a job. This is going to be like, it's going to go on your record, all this stuff.
Why? Because they're going to give you a dishonorable discharge?
Everyone was saying that, but the only way you can get a dishonorable discharge is like you commit a felony.
Yeah.
Like you do something terrible.
So it would have to be like like a medical discharge.
Well, it would have been, I think it's called a general discharge, where it's like you were never in, but it doesn't look good on your end. Like it does not look. It's like you got out of the army, but it's like they just let you go, and it's like that looks pretty poor. That the army just let you go.
Yeah, we wouldn't take it.
Right, and so they were talking all this stuff, and I thought about getting it. I was like, man, I should just get it. It's like everybody here at the unit's got it, and I was like kind of like almost conceding to it, and then I had a meeting with my commander. And my commander was just ripping me. And I was looking at this guy, and I'm like, there's no way I'm getting this shot now. Like, there's no way. I'm like, I'll take whatever repercussions, because I'm like, he's supposed to be my voice. And I asked him, like, you know, you're the person in charge. You know, you told me that, you know, the vaccine, you can kind of figure stuff out for me and maybe, like, just keep pushing it aside. But then all of a sudden flip the script on me. And it was like, whoa. You know, he wasn't on my team, so I didn't get it. And then they said not to show up anymore. It's like, we're pausing your benefits, we're processing you out. And I was like, damn, you know, like that's kind of, I was sad. I felt like sick. Like I didn't even want to tell my dad or my grandpa. I was like, it was hard.
I mean, you weren't the only one though. It was like police officers, firefighters, anybody who didn't agree or who didn't get the vaccine. Like you guys got kicked out. You guys, you know, no more jobs.
Yeah.
You couldn't go into some stores or restaurants.
In Chicago, for example, like I could, so just to be honest, I never got the vaccine. Big reason for me is I am terrified of needles. It's the biggest fear I have.
Yeah.
That mixed with, I don't know what isn't in the vaccine, right? It was just too new, right? Whatever. I was going to wait, whatever.
Yeah. Kind of going back to the Army, though, they called me back in February, and they're like, hey, you can come on back. And
you know why?
I was like, damn.
Because the laws changed. They passed a law that, like, they can't say anything for not having a vaccine.
Yeah, that's crazy though. How they just it was so adamant and so quick to throw that stone, get me out, and then all of a sudden they call me back and they're like, "Hey, we need you to come back." And it's like your duties are still like upheld.
Yeah.
Like, they never processed me out. And I remember that first formation when I came back and I was in my uniform. I see my commander, and you're supposed to address like officers as like sir, ma'am.
Yeah.
And I was walking, and the commander, when they break us, he'll just stand by the doorway and like say goodbye or like greet all the soldiers. You know, he'll just stand at the doorway. And I was walking, and I'm like, oh man, he sees me, and I see him, and I'm walking by. I don't know if I should be saying this, but I was like, I saw him, and I'm like, Captain, and he's like, Wolf, and I just kept on walking, and I was like, yo, that was the hardest shit ever. Like, I just called him Captain, like
Damn,
my commander.
like-
Like, I called him by his rank, and I was like, I should not have done that. Like, that was so stupid. But I'm glad there's a mutual respect there, and like me and that commander, we've had great interactions, great talks. He's a pretty stand-up guy. You know, his I think during that time. When we were talking in that meeting, he was bringing up a lot about back in like the early 2000s. He's like, yeah, when I was away in the Gulf, he's like, they were just shooting me up vaccines, making me take pills every day for like 6 months straight. He's like, they just shot me up. He's like, welcome to the Army. And I'm like, you know, he's got a point. It's like when you sign that dotted line, it's like,
You can't just have to do what they tell you to do.
Exactly. You know, soldiers nowadays, like, people aren't realizing, like, I didn't realize this when I enlisted. I didn't realize that, like, they can send me to go kill people. And, like, they could send, like, you're enlisting to fight for America.
Yeah.
You know, like, it's like, if we got to go, you know, fight the Russians or whoever, it's like, that's what I signed up for.
Yeah, they're gonna give you a send you over there, and you got to do it. So otherwise, but I mean, I know they do offer a bunch of benefits and stuff as well for those who join the military, and military is an outlet for a lot of people who don't know their next step or don't have, you know what I mean, that platform or the resources to get to that next step. So the military definitely helps people. But,
yeah, it was a pretty good filler, I would say. You know, during that COVID time, I was like college, like I was nervous, but I was like, I could try out the Army, and thank God I did reserves, so I can go to college and kind of live somewhat a normal life.
The Federal Reserve data indicates that as of 2021, the top 1% of households in the United States hold 32% of the country's wealth, while the bottom 50% only holds 2.6%. The top 1% holds 16 times more wealth than the bottom 50%. Why is this happening, and how can we change this?
It's sadly not going to change unless, like, we have, like, some sort of world catastrophe. Because, to be honest, it's the people who are at the top is the ones who own everything. It's the people who are at the bottom, right? Like, everyday people who own only 2.8%. We're the ones who are just working for them so that they can get all the benefits of our hard work.
Yeah, I would say that, you know, look at every society, look at every you know, civilization before this. It has never changed. It's always been the rich are always going to be richer than the poor and hold that, you know, margin of wealth. And it's like, I don't think it could change. I don't think we can make a difference. The only difference that I can make is be up there with them.
No, and here's the thing: is like,
and then
Try to
maybe
make change,
trickle down and make change. But it's like, again, that dog eat dog world, man.
yeah, pretty much. But I feel like a lot of it has to do with if you're not at the top, right? Like, you get no say, and especially like with whoever's at the top. They're the ones who really control our government. They're the ones who are putting money into pockets of politicians, of people who actually pass bills and shit. We have no say in it. Like, obviously, we could speak our mind, right, and protest and shit. But you'll have politicians to tell you right to your face, oh, yeah, we're going to take care of this, we're going to do that, we're going to do this, we're going to tax the wealthy. But they're not going to tax they're never going to tax the wealthy. It's crazy to me how many millionaires got made while they're working in government politics.
Yeah, that is kind of ridiculous.
Nancy Pelosi, for example. Like, her husband apparently is the best stock market exchange person ever. Like, he's the best trader ever. But isn't it kind of strange, though, that she's the one who passed the bills that he then invests on beforehand? So, for example, the U.S. government made a new bill saying that all government vehicles are going to be electric. I forget what year they're going to do that by, but all government vehicles are going to be electric. Right before that, Nancy Pelosi's husband bought millions of dollars of shares, and GM, Tesla, all these, electric car companies.
Yeah.
A lot. If standard people like you and me were trying to do something like that, that'd be insider trading. We'd go to jail for years, to federal prison. Mm-hmm. But she could get away with it. Her and her husband could get away with it with no problem.
Yeah. And money runs politics. Politicians aren't even paid that much. I mean, let's be real. Yeah, they get a decent salary, but money comes from, the illegal stuff they're doing.
I would say it'd be the loopholes.
Yeah, the loopholes.
The certain things that like they can kind of foresee in the future, and also like campaigning and stuff. There's so much money, and like people don't think when you give this money, it's like you're giving it to them to do whatever they want with it.
Yeah,
it's supposed to be for campaigning, but in reality, it's like they don't really like. They can hide stuff. Like, there's all those scandals. Like, what was Jesse White in Illinois was the biggest crook because he would run all these campaigns and stuff, and all of a sudden he's buying houses and real estate and making money off real estate, and he's making money everywhere.
And there's actually it's called the American Legislative Exchange Council, ALEC. It's a council. But it's where our politicians are working with business owners to, basically pass policies that benefit the business owners. There's been, I think it was Walmart that got caught up in that, but Alex has been exposed recently, and you know what I mean? It's been a lot of lobbying going on. A lot of the businesses, they're just coming in and saying, okay, they're just working together on laws that pass just to benefit the corporations, and that's crazy because they're all working together, and then all the news, all the media, all that stuff is owned by the same people. It's owned by the same 0.01%. Like Netflix, all this stuff, everything that we see on the internet is owned by the same families, and it's just manipulating the population as a whole.
Yeah, I got another question for y'all, but when do you think it's gonna end, or like how could you see it like being optimized, like our government? Because if they're constantly adding bills, passing this, passing laws, passing that, how many more laws can our country take? Like, that seems like a lot to big rule book to follow, and all these bills. Like, do you think that we could optimize it?
It's sad to say, but what I think is that it's never going to change. You'll have people who want an easy life. You'll want people who just work for 8 hours a day, come home, and do whatever they prefer doing with their lives. You'll have people who like be happy with those kind of lives and be determined just to live that way for the rest of their existence. Until that changes with people, or until there's a huge collapse where people like shit actually hits the fan, I don't think people are going to change.
Yeah,
I think there's not enough people like us who talk and who think the way that we do that actually want something to happen. There has to be a bigger thing. Like an actual event has to happen for people to finally wake up from whatever delusion that they're in. A lot of people don't think there's a problem right now. A lot of people think that, we're fine.
Yeah, I could definitely see that.
Yeah, because, there is a lot going on in society, and stuff is not... I think the main thing that we underestimate is the social trust. Like, we don't trust our neighbors, and we're just divided, and it's a lot because of politics, and people will literally... so, like, if someone's Republican or if someone's Democrat, they literally identify themselves full on with that party and that party's beliefs, and they won't hear anything about the other party's beliefs just because, like, they're just a hardcore Republican or hardcore Democrat. And those are one things that I'm not big into, like, you have to take from both sides. You have to listen from both sides. You have to be open-minded. You can't just say, but the Democrats are always right and everything they do is always right, or the Republicans, everything they do is always right, because there's flaws on both sides. We need to understand the flaws on both sides, understand where both sides are coming from, and come up with common ground and an agreement from there.
The biggest thing is trying to understand where one side is actually coming from and why they want things the way they do. People don't do things for no reason. There's always reasons behind things. And if people could just stop putting whatever beliefs they have, whatever mindset they have in front of hearing out the other side, we're never going to change. And that's kind of like what our government wants, though. They want us to be divided. So that because to be honest, right, the more the people are divided, the easier it is to conquer over them.
Divide and conquer, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that is kind of crazy.
I mean, we are all concrete. We go to school to work a job, to pay taxes for the government. Like, where is something different? Where is that financial freedom? We're not teaching about financial freedom. We're teaching people to work from 18 to 67. People are just conditioned to just go to school, learn how to work, and then work for 40, 50 years or however long it is, and then just you finally get retirement, when that's not how everyone wants to live. You're not free like that. Like, it's just rebranded slavery. Like, we don't have that freedom.
It's sad to say, but like, financial freedom only comes if like you're either super poor, because then you have no assets. You have nothing to take care of.
Yeah, that is
you have
true.
nothing to pay for, right? So that's either you get that way financial freedom, or you become like the rest of the 1% of the population who owns everything else.
Yeah.
You can't, man. At the end of the day, we just need a more unified country. We need to work together. We need to build trust within our communities. We need to find common ground. We need to have respect for other people. We need to learn how to communicate. And once we do that, we can come together and actually face these problems that we have in society today, instead of just arguing over the little things. You know what I mean? Let's find common ground and improve from there.
Totally have to agree with that. A lot of people just have to, like I was saying earlier, like, until like we go into like a mass catastrophe happens, or there's another war that the U.S. has to be involved in, I don't think people are going to go away from the petty little problems that are being pretty much just shown. I mean, yeah, there are a lot bigger problems out there, but people are just so focused on the little petty.
In my view, I think we gotta like focus more and be better role models for the youth. And like, I'm a pretty religious person now. Like I'm trying not to make it a phase, and I'm trying to make it more of a lifestyle. But I feel like the best thing that has happened to me in my adult years is like getting close with faith and keeping my health in touch, and like just trying to keep my mental clarity. And I feel like that's a lot of people struggle with those three things.
It's not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent. It is those that are willing to adapt. Ladies and gentlemen, the man controls life. We're out.